Attention. I'm Elaine Chapnick, President of the Larchmont Mamaroneck Local Summit, welcoming you to our December meeting. As you know, our December meeting always welcomes the county executive to talk about what aspects of the recently passed budget affect our area in particular. It also gives our community a chance to have questions for him. He is a little late. The last word we had, he was on Rockland, so he'll be here very soon. However, before that, since we have everyone here in our old stamping ground, I want to ask if anyone has any announcements, as we used to do. Are there any announcements that people from any other organizations around town want to make that about happenings this month? Yes, over here. Yes.
We could use
Stand
more.
up, stand up.
Say who's we is.
I'm from At Home on the Sound, and we can definitely use drivers. It's a small commitment. You can do it once a week, you can do it once a month, whatever your preference, and you just take someone where they're going and bring them back. It's a wonderful organization, and I hope someone will sign up. If you need a card, Gloria Goley is our director. Did I say that right?
No.
Goley?
Okay,
I've
thank you,
asked her
Lois.
to.
Thank you. Anyone else have an announcement? Yes, Joanne?
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to let everyone know that there will be a Coalition for Community call. It's a Zoom call on Thursday at 11 a.m. If you are a part of a community-based organization, the school district, a town supervisor, or a village supervisor, please do join in so we can all be on the same page about how to protect our immigrant community moving forward. And if you would like to donate any toys for our holiday gift drive, please reach out to Community Resource Center. We are distributing toys next week.
Thank you, Joanne. Yes. Phil, did you have something?
We are doing a audio theater recreation of It's a Wonderful Life at the Larchmont Library on Saturday, the 21st, and actually we're doing it in Portchester at noon and 3 o'clock at the library here. If you're all familiar with the movie, very simply, it will be introduced by the actress who played Zuzu in the movie. So it'll be a very special presentation. It is a joint production between the Sandbox Theater, LMC, the library, and the Westchester Council for the Blind, because the cast will include blind and handicapped kids, some of our local kids, as well as professional actors. So again, that's Saturday the 21st, 3 o'clock at the library here, or if you're in Portchester, at noon.
Thank you.
At the Portchester Library.
Okay.
And I have flyers if anybody wants to.
Marlene?
Just to mark your calendars on February 2nd, How Green. How Green is the houses of worship.
Louder.
The houses of worship, Green, How Green, will have an event at Larchmont Temple on February 2nd, probably at 3:30 or 4, and it will be sort of climate change solutions begin at home.
Great, thank you. There's some seats up here. Oh, okay. Any others? We have an announcement from the Larchmont Mamaroneck Local Summit. Where's Jeff? Jeff, would you like to make an announcement?
Maybe we should have an announcement as to January,
I'm sorry, what do you,
or January meeting.
well, I'll announce that at the
Okay.
end, that's okay. But,
Anyhow, it's wonderful to be back in this diner. This is not one of my tidbits, unfortunately. I'm sorry, Jane. You know, I was going to give a quiz, but and exclude you. I'll have a little bit of a tidbit in January, and you'll hear more about our January meeting in a minute. I'm going to talk about our organization. Our mission is to increase the well-being of the greater Larchmont Mamaroneck community. And on our website it cites, and I always like to say this, it cites 4 communities. It's the 2 villages, the town, and Rhinebeck. We can't forget Rhinebeck.
Right.
Our goal, one of our goals, is to provide for ongoing dialogue among local citizens about community problems, needs, and potential solutions. we have been a germ of a lot of ideas and organizations. Two of them just spoke to you. One is At Home on the Sound, and the other is Durandi used to be the Hispanic Resource Center, now the Community Resource Center. And our programs are wide and varied. But we have no home. Other than this, we've had some meetings at the Westchester Jewish Center, gratefully, St. John's in Larchmont, wherever we can get it. But this is really our monthly meeting home, as you can see, well-attended, comfort. But for the first time in our history of our organization, we need money. And that's the purpose of my speech. Nobody's paid, we have no rent to pay, we have, we only do a few little organizational things. If somebody's sick, we might get some flowers for them. But primarily, you'll see in the back of the room Sal, our good friend Sal from LMC Media. And Sal's one of the greatest videographers around. And LMC has to charge us money to do this recording. We think it's very important to be recorded and to be available on LMC's website so that we can look at past meetings. You've forgotten something. I think it's part of our community. LMC itself is a 501c3 organization, and they raise money for their staff and their equipment. As you can see, Sal has his equipment here. So you'll see a flyer on your table, on your placemat, and our goal is to raise about $3,000. Compared to some of the other organizations, this is a pittance. So you'll see an address on there for Sabrina, who's back here, and she's going to collect the checks at her address. If you feel so kindly, send in 25 bucks, 30 bucks, 15 bucks, 50 bucks, whatever you think you can or willing to do, and will help us promote being here and being recorded by Sal. Thank you.
Wait a minute.
I have to add that we also are a 501c3 organization, so we also would allow you to have a tax deduction for your donation. Gloria's going to explain how the
So, good morning. My name is Gloria Galli. I'm a member of the board of the summit here, as well as the executive director of At Home on the Sound. I just wanted to explain a little bit about what the flyer will allow you to do while we're all, this is a great time because we're all sitting around just talking and waiting for our speaker. So this would be a wonderful time. This QR code here, this square, all you need to do is put your phone camera in front of this square. And it will take you to a link that will take you to a place, a magical place, where you can donate to our cause. And as you all know, it's a very worthy cause, and we do really, really good, important work here. So if you have a minute, you're just hanging around, just take your phone. I'm here. If anyone needs help, just raise your hand. I'm happy to come and help you. I'll come help you. And just put your phone right over there, and you could do it. You will get an email confirmation of your donation that will act as your tax receipt. So get to it, everybody. Get your phones out and let's make this.
picture. You take the picture and then
Just hover your camera. Just hover your camera. You don't have to take a picture.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? I'm working on it. It's early. Thank you all for coming. We are very grateful to the Nautilus for working with us to come back here. We're very grateful to the Westchester Jewish Center because they hosted the homeless, as we were, and of course, Ken Jenkins, our Deputy County Executive. Keep reminding me, and I'll speak up. Project. The format of this meeting is similar to what it has been in the past. Basically, will have a few introductory remarks, and then we sent to Mr. Jenkins about 10 days ago or so a list of questions that we thought would be of interest to the community and of interest to the members of our board. So he's had an opportunity to look at them. There is, I should point it out to you, just one additional question. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Just, you know, you gotta, I mean, he's gotta stay on his toes, right? You know? And then, I'll tell you a little bit about his background, and I'll make it fast because we do want to get into questions. He's a graduate of Iona University, where he majored in communications, computer science, and he had a lot of jobs in the private sector. I believe it was with Apple, with NYNEX, with Verizon, with assorted others, and then he has served. Excuse me, am I?
The mic might not be on.
It's not a mic.
The mic is only for LMC.
We need to fix that. Project. Okay. Anyway. Okay. They did. I've lost my footing. The way we're going to do this today, however, is that we have a series of questions that we did send to Mr. Jenkins about 10 days ago, so that he would have an opportunity to review them. I'll point out to him that there's one small additional question so that he knows that it's coming. The only thing that's changed from what we sent him was a little bit of an adjustment to the order of the questions, but I don't think that should be any problem because the questions are in substance exactly the same. And that's where we are. So I think that I'd just like to welcome you, and I don't want to take up the time. They're here to hear you. Project.
So first, good morning, everyone. I apologize that on the delay of getting across, I did not realize Rockland Avenue was closed. I had the wrong location, went over to Westchester Jewish Center. They said hi, right? The security guard was like, no, what's going on here? And I was like, okay. Anyway, first, I am Ken Jenkins, and I'm Deputy County Executive. It's a privilege to be with you this morning. I hope we can hear in the back. I'm going to project, and and as long as LMC, I'm going to keep this lower, so that we can do this. It's always good being here. I see past supervisor Lorraine Walsh there, and certainly if I don't say hi to Jane Elkin-Eny, I'll get myself in trouble. Nina and all those other folks that are here. We have a bunch of elected officials, including my good friend Catherine Parker, Legislator Parker, and certainly on our team from the County Executive's Office, the Deputy Director of Operations, Emily Saltzman is here, right? And she always is here, right? Right. So, the Board of Legislators yesterday just finished the voting and adopting the 2025 operating and capital budgets. I know that there's a question on that in there, and we'll definitely make sure to get to that. The Board of Legislators adopted the budget with a 15-2 vote. The 15 Democrats and the one Republican, one conservative, voted against the budget. Right. The budget is awesome. Right. It is fantastic. It continues to make sure that we have a zero tax property levy for the 6th year in a row. Right. So yes, hit the thumbs up for that. Thank you. Right. I saw a thumbs up over there with eggs, so it's always good. Right. That we have for the last 6 years a zero tax levy, no increase in taxes. 4 years previous to that, we actually had a small reduction in taxes. The last 2, we've been able to hold the line. We've been able to do that, including making sure that we continue to invest in all the things that we think are important while balancing property taxes. We made sure to fully invest in our police services. I know it was in my bio, and I know once we threw the question away, my mom was a nurse and my dad was a cop, so when I happen to have the ability when we talk about police services that I have a special affinity because of family members that were involved in the police services, and for me in NYPD, my dad was a sergeant in New York City when he retired. So again, I know that we have to continue to do that. We're proud of the fact that we're able in Westchester County to have the reduce violent crimes and crimes across our communities by double digits over the last year over year. And that's not by ourselves, it's working with our partners, and whether it's with the town or the village, that we continue to do that work with our partners at the federal and state level. Right? The budget continues to make sure that we have investments in childcare so people can get to work. The adopted budget improved upon that, right? And I like to tell this part of the story because, you know, I was on the Board of Legislators with a young lady you all might remember named Judy Myers, right? And we created, Judy Myers was the one that created the Child Care Scholarship Program, working with Kathy Hallis in the Child Care Council. That program was $1 million when we first started in 2008. When Rob Astorino came in, he eliminated that program. And when we came in this administration, we brought it back. That program is now $3.6 million, and the Board of Legislators improved upon that because in the adopted budget, they restored the funding for that Westchester Works program, which was very important to them. But when we walked in the door in 2018, parent share in Westchester County was 28%, and trust me, it was a fight to even be at 28%. And then it is now, right now, 1% parent share. We were spending $32 million on childcare. We now spend $78 million on childcare. So we continue to put our money where our mouth is to make sure that we're investing in the services that everyone thinks are important to do that. I know we got a question on affordable housing, and we're going to continue to work on that as well. I'll say the bigger answer for that, but the 6,000 units of affordable housing that we have developed over the 8 years or 7 years that we've been able to work in this county and be able to make those things happen while we continue to get involved in the challenges that we're looking forward to facing. I built a career working around Westchester County and being able to come up with creative solutions to the problems that we face today. And whether it was when I was the president of the Yonkers branch of the NACP and doing that work, when I was 29 years old, so we'll do the math in a few minutes, right? When I was 29 years old, to when I became the chair of the Board of Legislators in 2010, when I followed some other young lady you might have heard of named Andrea Stewart Cousins on the County Board of Legislators, but I became the chair after being on the board for 3 years. And now serving as Deputy County Executive under George Latimer from day one, and our team has been fantastic to get us to where we are. So I'm going to stop because I know we have lots of questions, and you want to get your questions answered and not just hear from me. But I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to Local Summit today, and thank you for having me.
So there's two questions that I think are very relevant right now. I'm projecting. I do want to ask you, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing Westchester County? But since you sort of started off with taxes, I'd rather read the second question, and that is, county residents pay among the highest property taxes in the nation. Although County Executive Latimer has described his budget as containing no property tax increases, it's been reported that the proposed budget calls for an increase of 9% for the county's special districts. According to the Journal News, that would mean a county tax hike for most residents. Do you agree with the Journal News assessment? And if so, do you support and recognize this as a tax increase? What are your priorities with respect to containing expenses in the county?
All right. So not having a loaded question to start. First, and thank you. And first, don't call me Mr. Jenkins. Whenever that happens, I look around for my dad, and he's been passed away for 20 years. Right? So, one, we don't agree with that. Right? So we have an operating budget, and then we have several special district budgets. And again, being a veteran on the Board of Legislators, some of you heard me say this before, both George and myself are recovering legislators, right? And what that means is that we work in partnership with people, because legislators don't do anything by themselves, right? There's 17 members of the Board of Legislators. You need 12 to pass a bond act. You need 12 to pass a bond act and 12 to beat the county executive. And I know once or twice I've done that with partners like Catherine Parker when we overrode vetoes, but it's 9 normally. The special districts, my colleagues on the Board of Legislators over the years have fought mightily to be able to say they have saved money by not having increases in the special districts. And whether that's a sewer district or it's no longer called a sewer district, it's a wastewater recovery facility, right? This is about the third time it's changed, right? I'm like, I can't get it right. But it's wastewater recovery facility, or resource facility now, that they fought and they're like, yes, I saved money by not investing in that. Well, our bond rating companies told us you need to continue to reinvest in that, because what the previous administration did was raid those funds in order to try to keep property taxes low. And those funds need to be replenished because all of the things that we need to do. So whether it's a wastewater recovery facility or a water district or a refuse district, all of those are special district taxes. And those increased. And those increased, as you pointed out, by 9% in different areas. So I live in Yonkers. And in Yonkers, we have the largest wastewater recovery facility. We also spend the most money trying to invest in that. Somewhere around $120 million that we have spent so far in trying to do odor remediation. But the bond rating companies told us that we need to replenish those funds, and we have done that. And that's why we're in the position we are in, where we have the AAA bond rating back from S&P. From Fitch, and S&P has us on the track with a positive outlook, and so does Moody's. So again, those kind of things, we disagree with David McKay Wilson. I don't know why we do that with David McKay Wilson, just because it's David McKay Wilson. But the reality is that those taxes go up, but they don't go up for everyone. And certainly out of the $2.5 billion budget, it is not in our operating side. So we're going to continue to fight that, because latching onto the place where we say that Westchester has one of the highest property taxes in the country, we know that we've been blessed with the resources to be able to try to work with everyone. And those dollars that we get from tax dollars are your resources and all of our resources, and we protect them and we fight for them to make sure that we're doing the very best we can in trying to invest and making sure we're making a difference. We have on our Sound Shore, we have certainly invested in those wastewater recovery facilities as well, and certainly we're going to continue to do that.
Continuing in finance, a portion of Westchester County revenues come from state and federal governments for services mandated by those governments. Do you anticipate that aid will change with the new administration in Washington? I know. Gotta ask. If so, what contingency plans have been made, if any?
So, when we came into office in 2018, it's just a quick reminder that there was somebody named Trump as president at that point in time. And what we did during that time is we restored the community development block grant. We got out of the housing stipulation agreement. We settled that, and we finally moved forward on doing that kind of thing. We know how to work in challenging environments. What the Board of Legislators did in this budget, and I know that it wasn't as comfortable for everyone as they would like to see, because we held the line on investment in on our not-for-profit partners. Durandi, good morning. Right? And we held the line for our not-for-profit partners. But what the Board of Legislators did not do was go into our reserve funds and our rainy day funds, because we kind of think we might need them. Right? Because we don't know what resources are going to be necessary. We don't know what cuts are going to happen, whether that's at the state level or down up at the federal level. I mean, I know we have the congestion pricing thing that went forward, but again, there's a gap in how much money was expected from the MTA, so we don't know what the state is going to shift around to do that. So we're going to continue to work with all of our partners, and we have great partners here in the state, certainly with both Steve Otis and Shelley Mayer, and certainly Governor Hochul and those resources. And we might know our congressman really, really well, right? and while he's in the minority, we know he knows how to do this work and do that level of partnership. So yes, we're going to continue to we think that there's going to be some impact. and whether those impacts are on our community and our neighbors. And I know that's another question in here, so I'm kind of jumping ahead with. So whether or not those resources are necessary to make sure that everyone understands in Westchester County, we're going to continue to work with all of our partners to make sure that we're protecting our property tax, making sure that we're not trying to waste money on things, but also when we try things out, Westchester is known as the good child, right? So some of you that have children and grandchildren understand the good child syndrome. We like to be known as the good child, which means we get to go to our parent, the state, and say to them, hey, we'd like to try something out. And because we've been so successful in doing that, the state has been willing to allow us to do pilot programs on different things. And whether those are with housing programs where we can have some local preferences, Emily has been the champion in making sure that we've been able to get those things happening in HCR. Again, with our state partners, both inside in the administration and certainly with our state legislators, we're going to continue to do that work.
Turning to immigration, we have two questions about immigration that we'd like to ask. The first is that the Sound Shore community is home to many immigrant families, and various organizations such as Feeding Westchester and the CRC have reported increases in visits and requests for assistance. Is the county government's view consistent with the assessment that there is an increasing demand for services in the immigrant community, and what measures can the county take to improve the situation for many immigrants?
Well, we're not going to point at you, Randy, right? Because that's not fair, right? Huh? Right? But because of the resources that, whether it's the Community Resource Center, right, at the CRC, or whether it's our partners at Feeding Westchester, you should know that your county continues to do, in partnership with our partners on the Board of Legislators, to invest in things like in Feeding Westchester. You know, and I pointed Emily out before because I'm going to give us another shameless shout out because of the work with Feeding Westchester. We could go backwards, right? So when the fights that we were having in the previous administration, when food insecurity, Rosa Bloom was hired by Rob Astorino, and she came from caring for the hungry and homeless, right? And then she cut those program dollars, right? For food insecurity. We have steadily increased those dollars, and the shout out to Emily is because of creating the program, working with Feeding Westchester, with our nonprofit partners to be able to put an additional $2 million into those agencies, you know, through Sue Weissman, right? So it's a fight that we continue to have, that we're always going to keep working that, and our partners, again, on the Board of Legislators, continue the investments that we have with Feeding Westchester. I had to tell you, talking with Karen and those folks at Feeding Westchester, Karen Aaron, who's the CEO of Feeding Westchester, when we make requests and we say, hey, we'd like to try to do something different and something new. We had to come up with some different types of food, and they worked with us to do that. And whether those were for religious purposes, right? So whether the food had to be kosher or halal, we were working with both our partners at Feeding Westchester and our local community to make that difference, and we're going to continue to invest in that. But the question again is, as we move forward in a Trump administration that has been pointing at our immigrant community and trying to suggest incorrectly and unfairly that that's the reason there's some challenges that are going on. We're going to be working hard. We've already started working with the county attorney. The county attorney has already reached out to the attorney general, Tish James in the state of New York, and to be able to work through the different challenges that might come up as far as our Immigrant Protection Act, whether or not the Trump administration would do something like declare an emergency where they would be able to utilize different resources like military to come in. We're trying to be proactive with that, but we're also working with our partners around the county to continue to do what we did in the migrant crisis, right? We worked with all of our partners to ensure that the 3 hotels right now, I think they're either all getting ready to close. It's one, oh thank you, Em, there's only one hotel left, and I think that's the one that's at the edge of my block, right, in Yonkers, right? So I live on the block where the hotel, the Ramada Inn is, And I can tell you firsthand there has been zero issues, right? So now we're working with people that are afraid that of whatever things that might come, and we're working with our partners to try to be proactive, as Josh would do up in Rye, to make sure that we're working through these issues so that when challenges occur, that we're prepared as best as we can. Our Immigrant Protection Act says that Westchester County is not a sanctuary county where we don't do the federal people's job, right? That's what it says. It says that we don't use any of our resources to do anything that the federal government is supposed to do. And that is always going to continue. But again, there's a lot of people that are afraid for different reasons, and we need to make sure that we're protecting people's rights and making sure their rights are upheld. And we follow the law here in Westchester County, right? So we will continue to work with those folks to make sure that the challenges are being met. The new district attorney, Susan Kikase, I know has been in some meetings to talk about this. Our current DA was in conversations about trying to make sure that whatever charges, if something happens, that they have a specific method and realization how that could impact somebody's status. So we're going to continue to do that work because, again, we don't know exactly what is going to be done, but you know something, we should believe people when they tell us they're going to do certain things, and we're going to be prepared to do that. But again, working with all of our partners who are scared out of their wits, right? And it's just not a specific group of people. Some people think it's just our Hispanic Latino community, and that's just not true, right? And I mean, I know I was chilled the way that many of you were watching Kristen Walker talk to President-elect Trump on Sunday, and him saying, oh yeah, what we're going to do is we're just going to deport entire families. What? Right? If someone is here that was born here and talk about birthright citizenship and say that that's something that we're going to try to change, what? Wait, stop. Right? By the way, President Trump, your son is one of those folks that would be in the dreamer category, since your wife was an immigrant and her family was an immigrant. So let's we have to continue to do that, and that's the fight that we're going to continue to have, working with our state. Where in New York we're better. It doesn't mean we're good. It just means that we're better, and that we have to continue to work and listen to our community and listen to the challenges. And I'm going to flip with another different thing. No one in Westchester should be afraid to be who they are, display anything, any symbols of their religion on our streets in Westchester, and that includes anyone that's in the immigrant community, right? So if you are afraid, and we know we went through this, where people were afraid to wear anything that symbolized their Jewish heritage, and told not to wear anything, any jewelry and that kind of thing. Or we had someone that said, put your scarves down if you were a Muslim person, or we will not stand for that, right? So we're going to continue to work with all of our partners at every level and make sure that there is no one in our county that feels afraid to even be on the street. But it's going to be a challenge because we know the federal government and the Homeland Security person, if they get confirmed, because I still have my fingers crossed that we have federal officials in our Senate that actually believe in doing their due diligence and following the law. So.
I think you took care of most of my questions on immigration. The only one that I have left, is there a particular contingency plan you have if they start? Is there a particular contingency plan if they start roundups? Who knows?
Well,
Have it in mind.
Well, first, there's not a contingency plan that they're going to pull off the shelf. But what you should take some comfort in, if you will, is that Westchester County showed in the COVID crisis that when we have to make things up along the way, like COVID, and we can be a leader like Westchester was. We can continue to work with our partners and listen to them, whether that's through our Human Rights Commission, whether that's direct conversations with our nonprofit partners, but we have, and talking again in preemptive mode to our law enforcement side, talking with our partners in the nonprofit community, talking with folks just in the street. How can we do better and be prepared? There's only so much we can prepare for, but I'm going to point back out to our Board of Legislators that just adopted a budget, that we have a reserve fund which is healthy, but again, it's still the emergency fund. So we're going to be able to move and adjust appropriately. Something happened in 2020, and on March 3rd, 2020, at 7:50 in the morning, County Executive Latimer gave me a call, which was unusual. He doesn't usually call that early in the morning. He texts a lot. I don't know if you know this, right? But he usually doesn't call that early. So I picked up the phone, and he talked about, we have a case here in Westchester about COVID, right? And we're like, all right, let's get together, and we're built for this. And we were ground zero in Westchester. You know how that worked, right? So we have the same team, right? Our team has been together for 7 years. We have been blessed, but people have not left because they really like working with our team, right? And that's a good thing. So now that George is elevating and going to Congress, we still have the same team around that has been working through issues and being able to come up with creative solutions to make sure that we're staying on top of things. But we have great team members in Joan McDonald and Emily Saltzman in our operations side. With our entire team on the operations side spends a lot of time working with resources and trying to be proactive and looking at solutions. Our county attorney, again, is already starting to talk to our attorney general to figure out things that we can do to make sure that people feel safe. Talking with our not-for-profit partners, and whether it's CRC here or whether it's Neighbors Link with Corolla Bracco, and trying to make sure that we're having these conversations, talking with the governor, which we're going to just keep fighting to make sure that we're protecting our citizens and the people that are here in Westchester County, right? Y'all have been so quiet. Look at y'all.
All right. I'm going to take one more question here. Okay, there's two areas, maybe someone out there will ask this question, I suspect they will, that we haven't been able to get to because running out of time. One is about the shortage of affordable housing, and the other one is about up-county development that may be contributing to flooding down here. Why don't we start with the up-county development, and then someone out there, please pick up the ball and ask about the shortage of affordable housing, because I'm going to have to turn this over to the audience after this question. So, there you go.
All right, well, I'll try to do both of them, right? So, the biggest issue I feel that we are going to continue to deal with is the impact of climate change. And for us here in Westchester, no matter where we are, but specifically here on the Sound Shore, is about flooding, right? Because we did a study, and when I was on the Board of Legislators, and Catherine and I, and our colleagues got a study, and Westchester, for lack of a better term, is really a big hill, right? So if you think of it that way, Westchester's a big hill, and water flows downhill, along with other things, right? And thank you again, I appreciate that, right? But the water flows in two directions. One is here on the Sound Shore, right, in Long Island Sound, and the other one is in the Hudson River, right? Okay. If you're at the base of those rivers, or if the base of the mountain, like we are here, in the flatlands and that kind of thing, it's a floodplain. How do we fix those problems? So it's not just necessarily just about development, because our county law, by the way, says whenever you do a development anywhere in the county, that one of the impacts that needs to be evaluated is the impact on flooding and downriver, right, or downstream, or whichever ways that we like to look at it. We have been working with the state on the Environmental Bond Act, right? We passed that, 3 years ago now, right? And we haven't really seen the results of those projects. We're in the midst of doing continued studies for flood mitigation regionally. So the state DEC continues to do that work in partnership. I understand that there might be some announcements soon, right? And I expect that those announcements will be soon to help us deal with some of the projects that are necessary to help widen culverts and to be able to get water out so it doesn't back up, right? So you all see this all the time, And then we also need to connect that to housing, because in our housing, there's this opportunity to do little things like create stormwater retention basins. We had a fight in our administration, not inside, but outside, about something that we were going to do in a field in Bronxville on the Bronx River, right? And I know you heard me say this joke many times when I do the weather report on our briefings, and say that if you live near a body of water, if you drive your car on a road that has a body of water in its name, it's probably gonna flood, right? So whether it's the Hutchinson River Parkway, the Sawmill River Parkway, the Sprain Brook, I mean, it's a thing, right? So we say that, but the reality is that we were trying to do something that Scout Field was building a soccer field like we did at Flint Park, right? So I was there with Judy on the original one, and we'll be here with Catherine Parker for the update, right? Under those is a stormwater retention basin. The field really looks cool, right? But the reality is that it's a stormwater retention basin under it to release water in a certain way. So the state has a couple of projects that, I'm not going to pre-announce, because, the governor would get pissed at me, right? Even if y'all didn't tell, she would find out somehow, right? And that they have a few projects that are actually on our Sound Shore that will be helpful in trying to start to address those problems. But again, it's connected to housing. And that was the good child syndrome again. So I know that there's a challenging proposal, but one of the pieces of that proposal that HCR did for the Mamaroneck proposed project was to create good child syndrome, right? 50% of those units that would be reserved for people that had flood impact in the flatlands. That's smart stuff to do, right? Now, whether or not that project gets done the way that it was proposed is a different story. But again, it's the ability to have the conversation with our state partners and say, how do we do and deal with flooding? Because that problem doesn't matter where you live in Westchester. It doesn't matter your income. It does not matter, right? A friend of mine in Bronxville that was doing some kind of event out somewhere else in Long Island, was not able to come to that event. If y'all remember on Jewish Heritage Day, I cannot remember in August, it was pouring, right? So I went out to an event out on Long Island, and the person that invited me was from Bronxville, and they didn't make it. So I called them back and said, hey, I missed you out there, but I made it out and saw a good friend out in Long Island. And they said, well, we were going to come, but we got flooded out in our house, right? In Bronxville. Along the Bronx River Parkway, that's built to be a floodplain, right? It's built that way, right? So to keep water away from homes. And the answer for some of this is that we got to do eminent domain and take somebody's house. Tell me who wants to tell, which elected official here wants to say that to somebody in the community that says our only answer to solve this problem is by buying your house and saying find another one somewhere else, and hopefully you can find it at the same price. So we have to continue to do these creative solutions to resolve both the flooding problem and the housing problem. We did a housing needs assessment when I was on the Board of Legislators. We passed it. It never got done until this administration that did a study that said, here's how much housing that we need. And we went to every community regionally, and we did a little shaming and said, hey, in this region, no, we did, right? And we said, hey, in your community, this is what you need. Here's how much substandard housing that you need. Here's how much affordable housing that you have and that you need. Here's how much housing for people with disabilities, right, that we need. And something happened we did that in January of 2020, and we said to those local communities, go back to your local community, work with your own planning team, and come back with solutions for your problem, right? Not somebody else's, for your problem. And they were able to start to do that, and then something happened in 2020. I can't remember what it was, right? And then, so we need to update that particular study to do some things, and we have. We just haven't rolled it out yet, but we've done some updates in that study to be able to show the local communities, here's what you need for you, And when we think about that, the last thing I'm going to do before I open up, because I saw Jenny's hand up, so right, we'll do that, was that in 2009, when Andy Spano lost, I was in the office. And at that time, the Board of Legislators had already determined, and the caucus had already determined I was going to be the new chairman of the board. So that was mid-December. So I asked Andy Spano when he was packing up and said, hey, Andy, if there was one thing you could have done over your 12 years as county executive, what would that have been? And he said, sidewalks.
Sidewalks.
And some of you is like, oh, well, why sidewalks? Well, all right. Well, if you are getting around, and whether you have a walker or a cane, in 2000, once upon a time, I tore my Achilles playing basketball because I'm too old to be playing basketball, right? So take up golf, right? And I was walking around with crutches, and you realize how much sidewalks really mean. And if you have children in carriages, you realize how much sidewalks with curb cuts really mean. So again, those are all things that we need to do with affordable housing, but we're working again creatively with all of our partners to come up with creative solutions. Emily had a creative solution that created affordable home ownership, not just rental, right? Because when someone gets enough money in affordable housing, they got to leave and then go some other place if they want to buy something. We got to keep working on that. Jenny, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Make everyone able to hear.
Just stand up and say it loud. She can hear.
Thank you, Ken. I have a question about immigration law and the interaction between county, state, and local. So I understand there is a bill before the state legislature called New York for All, which I understand would at least do what the IPA does in Westchester County. Maybe it goes farther. So I'm wondering if the county has taken a position on that law, which there are a lot of advocates who are trying to get it passed sooner rather than later to protect New York immigrants. And then the other question is, in the absence of that, is the county providing assistance to municipalities with model legislation to help them pass their own ordinances about interactions with ICE and so forth?
Sorry.
First, don't be sorry. The question was, if everyone didn't get it, was there's a state law that's New York for All, right? So the county has not taken a position on that bill. We have an Immigrant Protection Act, right, which was adopted right at the beginning of our administration, right? So it was January of 2018 when the executive order that the county executive signed, and then it was sent down to the Board of Legislators who adopted a version of that, but that's the law in Westchester County. Our position is that we don't do the federal government's job, period, right? If someone has a judicial order, judicial warrants, we follow the law, and that's fine, right? And that's the work that we do together. We are not providing resources to the local community, any local communities, to be able to say, here's how you can create your own. We certainly have shared it. I don't know if you know George at all, but George likes to share, right? Sharing is caring, but we share all of our resources, share our resources as far as laws that we have passed, and invite people to adopt those laws. The challenge, Jenny, is that for those communities, and whether those are communities like White Plains or Yonkers or any place like that, is that they have to make sure on their level that they're doing the things in their communities to protect folks and follow the law. And there's a challenge because the language kind of trips people up. We make sure in our Immigrant Protection Act, again, to follow the law, but we're not doing somebody else's job, right? So Jenny, I think that at the state level, the advocates that have been working on that, and again, I guess it has to get reintroduced in the new session in January when they come back and forth. I know that there's a tremendous argument between the state legislature about that, because now you trip into the political world, and words matter. Words matter, and those words especially when you say things like sanctuary county or sanctuary city or sanctuary state, is a third rail issue for many people. So, Jenny, I think that the place where the law may be able to be most effective is the part that says we are not doing the federal government's job. Don't ask us to do that, right? And we're not going to. And that's what our law says, and with information that we share. Questions?
Is there another question?
No questions?
Oh, wait, no questions.
Whoa.
This is a little bit maybe off topic, but is it possible for the county to prioritize public safety on the roads? Because I guess I say anecdotally, people are driving very recklessly. There's a tremendous amount of speeding on the Bronx River Parkway. It's like a Indianapolis Speedway a lot of times. And I never ever see any enforcement of any of the traffic laws, like no front license plates on New York State cars, which is every day you see more and more of that. Tinted windows. Where's the enforcement? And also, there's a lot of focus on gun safety, which is of course important, but for the average person, being on the roads now is dangerous.
So Commissioner Rayner might disagree with you. Commissioner Rayner is our Commissioner of Public Safety about the number of stops. So the Board of Legislators, and this is not new, right? This has been in place for several years. The Board of Legislators gets a quarterly report of the stops that the county police do, broken down by ethnicity, broken down by whether someone got arrested, etc. I drive every day on the Sprain International Raceway, right? So I know exactly what you're talking about, right? The speed limit is a suggestion, right? And you feel like you're standing still if you're driving at the speed limit, and if the person's not doing 65 or 70, I mean, it's crazy, right? So some of the parkways, like the Bronx River Parkway, that's our road. The Hutchinson River Parkway and the Sawmill, we get some dollars from the state. By the way, it's not covering full cost, but we've gotten more, right? Because we continue to work with our state partners when we patrol those roads, like on the Hutch and that kind of thing. They do a lot of stops, right? And they certainly enforce the law. And we have a lot of things that happen with our speed cameras that are in different places. There's a lot of license plate readers and speed cameras, etc. So they are doing that enforcement. Is it enough, or is it everything? No, right? But I know that our public safety officials working with our local law enforcement partners are doing everything they can do possible. But as you said, like I said, the Sprain International Raceway, and that's no joke, right? The Bronx River, Hugh Grecian, Commissioner Grecian, and Brian Heck is here from the DPWT group, and Hugh Grecian said to us, we were talking about the Bronx River Parkway and speeding, and he said to me, you know what, you don't want to straighten out some of the curves and turns. The Bronx River is twisty. The Sprain is like this, right? And when the road's like this, people speed. So the Bronx River is less of an issue. The Hutch, you know, depending on the spot, right? You know, you could get some speeding in spots, but because the roads twist and turn. I know on the Sawmill, and if you ever go up on the Sawmill side, you know, getting towards the Taconic on Route 9 side, on the other side of the county, that road is scary, just like in the Bronx River when you go under the tunnels, that you almost feel like you don't have enough room, right? And that's by design, right? So, no, it is. It's by design. So again, when the more room that you have, the straighter the road is, the more you speed, right? Well, we were talking about this with another bridge project of why not to straighten out the road. That was Quaker Bridge, if any of you are familiar with that in T-Town, where that bridge is been out and is going to be out for a couple of almost 2 years. So.
Related to that, do you have any reports yet on the school bus cameras?
We don't have any. We don't have any actual data. But I was at a meeting last night where legislator Emiliana Ulai, who represents District 9, which is Croton, Cortland, Ossining, and a piece of Peekskill, or not Peekskill anymore. She said that in the first 30 days of the school bus armed camera program in their area, that part was a trial, a test to just see. There were 360 incidents of people passing a stopped school bus in the first 30 days. So we can get that information to Legislator Parker to be able to share with us. Wait, your eyes light up, right? And some people, again, they think when there's things like speed cameras or school bus cameras. We saw that in Suffolk County, they were getting rid of some of their camera systems, or they didn't renew their camera systems. In Yonkers, we have school bus armed cameras. The revenue from that was $600,000, which meant there's a lot of people. If the ticket is $50, you can do the math. 600,000 divided by 50, right, is saying that there's just a lot of people that do not pay attention to stop school buses. On roads like the Post Road, right. The challenge is here when it's just a double line, you're supposed to stop, right? You get to some places, they may have the Jersey barriers, the concrete barriers in between. You're still supposed to stop, right? Good. Thanks for coming out to Summit this morning. Yes. So it really is the school bus camera law, or the passing of a school bus law. It doesn't matter. When you get the divided road, that is supposed to stop. I didn't know either until I saw that. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, is there anything being done about reducing greenhouse gas emissions by the county in county buildings?
Yes. No. What is that though? So one of the fun things that you get to do when you've been a legislator, as George and I have been, is to be able to say, what laws did you pass that dealt with certain things? And Catherine and I are only smiling at each other because one of those things that had to do with greenhouse gases was the law to have emissions from alternative fuel vehicles, right? So we were way ahead of the game. Andy Spato's way ahead of the game with hybrid buses, right? Right. But we're in a new place where we have 100% electric buses, and we have a few of those that are being tested right now, and we're going to continue to do that. Catherine and I created legislation that she improved upon in sessions after I left, right, where we had smog emissions, because she's the one that added smog emissions. I wasn't thinking about smog emissions at all. And when we created alternative fuel vehicles, where we were going to do electric vehicles or other hybrid vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, etc. Jim Mazzano, I remember the conversation. We were sitting at the table negotiating this legislation, and Jim Mazzano said, "Oh no, it's the hydrogen car that Toyota said that's going to be that," and we're like, "No, it's electric." And we were right. He was wrong. Right? But, wait. He said it was a fad. He said it was a fad that we didn't need to do it, but we have an EV charging initiative where we work with our local municipalities, where we put $5 million to do EV charging stations. Again, as Catherine has her hybrid and I have full electric cars. I want to get rid of my Tesla, so if anyone wants to talk to me about right, it's like it's just how much money I'm going to lose. So, but again, doing that from 2013 for me, that's one way. The other ways is that we do our food scrap recycling, right? And food scrap recycling helps to deal with greenhouse gases. The things that we do at our wastewater recovery facilities to recycle the methane gas and to be able to utilize it in different places is another way to do that. The biggest plant that we have that's a part of a contributor is Wheelabrator, and people like to talk about that with the garbage to energy plant that Al Del Bello was the one that helped initiate back in those days, right? People up in Peekskill would like us to close that facility, but we say to them, okay, how about this? Everybody stop eating, right? And stop buying stuff from Amazon, right? because all those boxes got to get done sometimes, right? And we got to try to recycle more. But doing food scrap recycling, doing curbside pickup of food scraps, right? Those are all initiatives that we continue to do, and they continue to work on ways to reduce the greenhouse gases. And Catherine is a leader of that, right? To be able to do, whether it's the white roofs and seeing what kind of things we can do in our facilities, in our buildings. You may know in Westchester County that we already do this thing in the summer where it's called New Energy, and we start turning off lights, etc. Even though we have LED lights now that don't use like this amount of electricity, we're still turning off lights and trying to make sure that we're reducing greenhouse gases that way. And we actually go off the grid to be able to allow that to happen. And the more solar plants that we have, the community solar agreements, there may be some challenges in that. Again, I live in Yonkers, and we have Westchester Power that some people have some challenges with. At the CCA level, the aggregate energy providers, I think the state is working hard, and I think they're going to try to eliminate that program because of all of us that all of a sudden saw that our bills were being disparate, and understanding, even though it's an opt-out provision, that we can opt out of that program. They may make some changes in that program and say you got to opt in versus opt out, but all that is doing is to try to save greenhouse gases. We continue to do that. We still have our Planting Westchester Tree Initiative, where we're trying to plant another 1,000 trees. We do fun things, I want to say crazy things, with the pollinators, with the bees, right? So Pete Harcum and I, when I was on the board, we would have Pete Harcum, who said he represented more deer than people because he's up in Bedford, right? So he would talk about that and say that he represented more deer than people, but he had a deer mortality report, right? Yeah, and that time we were doing things to reduce our deer population, and we were doing contraceptives on the berries to try to reduce the deer population, right? And it was fun. When the commissioner came in, who was Joe Stout at that time, I asked him, are we bringing them flowers and candy too? So, yes, sir.
Yes. Yes, a follow-up on food scraps. Can the county widen the acceptance of food scrap collection from schools, houses of worship, and community establishments such that the savings are greater? What additional incentives can the county implement to urge curbside pickup of food scraps in municipalities?
So the question was about food scrap recycling. So what we did in the county is that we made the price the same, the tipping fee at our materials recovery facility, the same as whether it was plain old garbage or food scrap recycling. Up at our Valhalla facility, the HMRF is what we like to call it. We do demonstration programs, and those are open to schools and houses of worship, right?
But the collection of food scraps from schools, etc., are not accepted in municipal facilities that drop off or curbside. So what I'm suggesting is that you allow schools and institutions of worship to contribute to the drop-off and subsequently get recycled by the county.
So the question is about working. We will work with our local municipalities here in the town and the village to make sure that we can try to figure out to expand. Again, we really like trying stuff out. We do, right? I mean, the best thing to do is try it. If it doesn't work, scrap it, right? Not food scrap it, but just scrap it, right? But if it does work, we can expand it. So we can do pilot programs and try those kind of things out with our local houses of worship and our school districts, because I did not know that they were not allowed to do that, right? So we're going to follow that up, right?
Hi. It's well known that there's a housing shortage nationally as well as regionally, and yet there's a tremendous anti-development sentiment pretty much around all of Westchester. So how do you reconcile the two?
sorry, you might not have heard, the question was about the anti-development sentiment, because there's a housing shortage. There's a housing shortage in New York State. Not just Westchester, it's a housing shortage in New York State. And what we have been able to do with our creative programs, we have two funds that have been there for many years, right? Which is the New Homes Land Acquisition, right? And the Housing Infrastructure Fund that we've been having in place. When we walked in the door, again, those were $10 million. We moved them up to $20 million, then moved them up to $40 million. So we invest a lot of money from the county to help partner with things. What we did, in addition to that, over the last 2 years, and that program is wrapping up, that we took some of our ARPA dollars and we created a flex fund, right? And that flex fund was $100 million, right? To be able to work on projects that either already got, that were already approved at the local level, that had supply chain increase in cost, or the interest rates increase in mortgage. So we continue to do that. But now what we have with the updated data is the ability to work with our local municipalities and maybe some recalcitrant partners, wasn't that polite, right? Right? To be able to work with them on different solutions in their community. Because again, when we talk, I'm going to use a community that is known, which is Mount Pleasant, right? So Mount Pleasant, when the governor proposed a couple of years ago overriding local zoning to be able to move forward, the municipalities rightfully pushed back and said, hey, we have local zoning for a reason. We have local things in input for a reason. We're working with our community to understand what we can do. Mount Pleasant did a study. They came up with some housing proposals, and they were ready to move forward on that. And the governor's proposal said, A, those don't count because it was before, and two, that we're going to override your local zoning. That's never good. So what we're doing now is continuing to work with our local municipalities, and whether it's with our housing needs assessment and say, here's what you need, and how do you tell us how you want to do that, and then use our creative programs to help support those programs. So we're going to continue to do that across the county. The last number I heard was something like 12 to 14,000 units short of housing. You know, we're all getting older and better looking too, right? Right? And we need to make sure that we are creating opportunities to age in place. Sidewalks, right? That's infrastructure. We provide that working with the local municipality to do that. So we're going to keep doing that, and we're going to keep working that with the developers. The developers sometimes may want to push really hard to get some things done because they have dollars on the line, right? They're not doing it for fun, right? And we need to work and reconcile some of those, that you get the housing that you need, and then we put the infrastructure in place behind that, and whether that's public transportation, whether that's on our roads and bridges, whether that's in flood mitigation, because I think there's a lot of ways to make sure to resolve some of the problems. But it takes a lot of time and patience and energy. Nora will tell us that, right? That this patience is necessary. Nobody likes getting yelled at meetings back and forth. One of the developers likes to tell a story about me personally up in Somers, right? So one of those recalcitrant places. And we were having some housing that we built and developed. That's there now. It's called the Muse, right? It's affordable housing. It's on Route 6. It was 100% affordable housing, and we walked into the public hearing, and I walked into the public hearing, and I was like, this looks like a wedding, right? Come on, you guys are upset over here. It's like, you know what? Let's all talk through this issue and resolve this problem. And we were able to do that. And that's what we're going to continue to do at Westchester, and with the administration that we have, we're going to continue to go out, be partners, work on solutions, come up with creative solutions, and be there for everyone to make sure that we're dealing with housing as it's necessary for everywhere. Again, if you want to take your house, you know, we're not empty nesters yet, but you know, 2 out of 3 are out, right? So sooner or later, we're going to want to downsize from where we are, right? I want to stay in the same community I grew up in, I lived in, and you know, for us, 42 years, right? So I want to make sure that happens for everyone, no matter where they are, and we have to be able to invest in that. And we need our state partners, and as George would tell you, we need our federal partners, because we need a lot more money to do that. But again, we're going to work and continue to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Thank you all for coming.